Thanks very much for joining us today. My name is Asif Rehmani. I'm here with Daniel Glenn. Hey, Dan.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Austin.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So the topic we want to talk about today is keeping up with Microsoft Office 365. I still like to call Microsoft Office 365 just for folks who don't refer to it as Microsoft 365, which is the supposed official name. So put both in there. Uh, back in the day, I'm dating myself definitely I'm talking about back in SharePoint 2001, 2003, 2007, I've gone through all the releases.
Mm-hmm.
We had to worry about the release every 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We got really excited and there was really good stuff that came out of it. And then we talked about it, we showed it, we did all that good stuff. Now the world has changed, right? I wake up and I see different things that I had not even thought that were going to be coming down the pipeline. And I thought we were supposed to know everything, but we don't, unfortunately. That's just the truth. There are still things that I get excited about, definitely, but still surprised about as well. So the big question becomes, how do folks who are at the ground level keep up with it? And of course, an even bigger question that we're going to tackle also is like, what should they care about? What should they disregard altogether? Because obviously everybody has a real job they got to do, not just be keeping up with Microsoft 365 all the time. So we'll dive in. Daniel, you just want to introduce yourself first a bit before we get into it?
Sure. Thank you again for having me. My name is Daniel Glenn. I am a Microsoft MVP, and I'm a collaboration practice lead for an organization called InfoWorks, based in Middle Tennessee in the U.S. We implement Microsoft 365 technologies, also Power Platform with workflow and Power BI. We're kind of a whole business solutions provider, but you mentioned the working with SharePoint for so long. I have too. I started out being an admin for a Portal 2001 server. And so I have seen every version of SharePoint on-prem and every version in the cloud. In fact, I was a BPOS and even before. So anyway, I've been around the block as well. And I agree with you. It is an interesting time we're in, because for those of us, and you missed out one point, which when you're talking about the releases, we also got to go to a conference. And we'd go to a conference and we'd have someone get up on stage, whether that was Jeff Teeper or somebody else from Microsoft, and they would say, here's all the cool things that we're going to be releasing. And we'd say, yes, that's awesome. And then we'd go home and get ready. We'd fire up a server and install the beta, bits to test it out and all of that, and go through that change process. We don't do that anymore for cloud people. For those organizations that are using the cloud, we don't do that because, well, frankly, we can't. We can pseudo do something similar, and we can talk about that, but we can't do anything close to being able to test out our content, our sites, our solutions using the new product.
Yeah. Agree. So a lot to talk about. Let's dive into it. For those folks who have not met me in person before or online, my name is Asif Rehmani, by the way. Officially, I run a company called VisualSP, and we're also very, very focused on helping the users be productive. And obviously, keeping up with change is a big part of staying productive, especially for admins and then admins helping their users. So having said that, let's talk about this. Let's dive right into it, Daniel. How do you keep up? Forget about the regular folks for a second. You are, of course, on top of it. You didn't mention your show. Daniel and Daryl Webster, both of them run a show called Message Center Show. You'll find this on messagecentershow.com or also on YouTube. Definitely check that out. That's definitely one way that you contribute to the community and you help folks understand it. But how do you keep up? I want to know.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning the show. MessageCenter.show is the way you can get links to the audio and video version of the podcast. And one way I keep up with change is preparing for that show. We review in the show, the big topics that are in the Message Center, the changes that are coming, and explain and give some. It's not just reading the messages, it's also explaining what they are and how it may impact you. And so hopefully we give you some insights on the way, some things that you might not have thought about for those messages. So that is one way I prepare, is I read every message, and then I go through this thought process. And I think it's similar to the way most people read the Message Center. Is that's great. Is this something,
Yeah.
right? Is it something or is it not something? Is this something for me, my organization? And if it is it a big something or a small something? And then if it's a big something, then what do I need to do to communicate it to my organization in a timely manner so we can be prepared for it? If it's not a big something, then how do I educate people so that they maybe can use it in the future? Maybe it's just a new feature or something. But if it's something that's going to heavily impact what we're doing, then you go through the process of how do I actually handle this? So that's one way I prepare. I keep up with changes, prepare for the show, and doing all of that. Well, not everybody does that, right? Not everybody
Exactly.
has a show,
That's
so they
right.
can't use that. But keeping up with the message center is vital for many of the user audiences, the personas, if you will, in an organization. You've got developers, you've got global administrators, and people who manage security, and people who manage services, and maybe who's manager of IT. You have power users who are using it, like, services like crazy, and maybe all of those things is one or two people total, depending upon the size of your organization. So keeping up with change in the message center, keeping up with those messages is important, but really that shouldn't be your first stop. It's actually probably your last stop.
Hmm.
Way before that, you get kind of in order. And the way I look at it is the Microsoft 365 roadmap. That is
Roadmap.
where
Okay.
Microsoft is supposed to make announcements and say, here are the things we're working on. I say supposed to because sometimes things land on the roadmap when they are actually being pushed to tenants, being pushed to your environment.
Yep.
So we get zero notice whatsoever. But for the most part, that's where it's placed first, is in the roadmap.
Let's look at some of these things.
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen also so we can take a look and ask you a little bit further questions about this. Daniel. All right, let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So here's
this
the
is the
message
message
center, right?
center.
Yeah. All right. So for folks who have not been here before, I have to remind myself also, to be honest, it's Microsoft 365 Admin Center. You go in there and under health, you're going to find the message center, or you just do a search on top. You'll find that there too.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in message center and you're looking at this thing. First of all, are you going to come here every day? Chances are no, you're not going to come
No.
here every day. If you are looking at it right now, we're recording this on March 5th. So there's 2 things out here for today.
Yep.
Before that, for yesterday was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And before that,
Several.
plenty more.
Yes.
So am I coming here? Am I looking at the digest that's coming to me through my email? Am I doing a combination? And how am I running through this in my mind saying, all right, depending on the service, first of all, do we even have the service? Are we using, for example, Power Automate, right? If we're not using it, that's easy to just disregard it. Or are there other things that I'm looking to see if it's important, and if yes, how important?
It is multi-layered because, and you kind of highlighted a lot of it. First of all, it's service. So is it a service we're using or not? Okay, fine. Yes, you can disregard it if you're not, but maybe not, because what if something is announced that your organization can actually really be using in Power Automate, using your example, that maybe you need to actually bring this forth to your company and say, actually, we need to be using this. So you can't totally disregard it per service. So you look at service, you can look at the timing, you can look at, is it important or not? Because some of them will have an exclamation mark next to them, red, and you can look at what they've been tagged. Is this an admin feature? Is this a upcoming, a new feature? Is it a major update? Those have impacts as well. You mentioned email. You can sign up to receive emails, which are, whether you could say, I want to know all the major updates. I want to get an email immediately, or I can have a roll up per week. But going back to your original question, are you in here every day? I would say it depends. And it really depends on what your role is. Is your role, I am a service admin for Yammer because my organization's huge. We're using Yammer nonstop. My sole responsibility, or maybe one of my major responsibilities, is Yammer. Then you need to be following the Yammer messages in the message
Yeah.
center. And maybe you are coming in here every day, spending 5 minutes just to check to see, are there anything in Yammer coming up?
Have you ever done this thing, Daniel, where you
Yep.
do planner syncing? Does
I,
that make sense?
I was just about to get to that.
Okay.
This is a new functionality, planner
Yeah.
syncing. Message center, we were actually working with the team, the Microsoft team there is a team that
Nice.
manages the message center, and tell them we need a better way of tracking this. And this is one way that was released last year, and is coming into general availability, has been over the last couple months, been able to sync to Planner automatically all messages. And this
Hmm.
way, and it carries tags over to say, create a plan and then have buckets, and have a within that plan have a board for each one of the items. Right, I have an item in there that has the information about the message, and gives you, what service pertains to. But the really cool thing that it does now is it actually updates. As long as you don't tinker too much with the item in Planner, it will update it. And
Mm.
you're kind of highlighting one that says updated there. It'll actually update the item in Planner. And the syncing with Planner is nice because then you can assign those tasks to people. So if your organization is
Yes.
large enough, then maybe
Yes.
you have your services split out. Like I was mentioning before, someone's in charge of Yammer, someone's in charge of SharePoint and OneDrive, someone's in charge of Teams. Then you can move those around in your plan
Absolutely.
into the appropriate buckets, and then you can assign them to people.
Makes
As
complete sense.
Yeah,
I'm so
so
glad
that
they're
is
doing that.
definitely one way to handle it.
All right. So moving on, let me actually show something else here. This, by the way, is the site we were talking about before,
Mhm.
messagecentershow.com. And you also mentioned that messagecenter.show. You can go there.
It just goes there.
It just
It's
goes
a
to,
URL redirect. So messagecenter.show takes you to this
okay.
page right here. Yep.
All right, for everybody, here we go. Messagecentershow.com or messagecenter.show. Definitely
Either
check
way.
that out.
Yeah.
Now, I think I have the roadmap opened up. Here we go.
Yep.
So here's a roadmap as it exists today,
Mhm.
Microsoft 365 roadmap. What do you think is the best way when I come here for the first time, and it's my first time? It's not my first time, but if it is
Mhm.
my first time, where do I start?
Yeah, I'm going to say it again. It depends on who you are.
Okay.
What is your role?
Yeah.
Because we have what you're showing there, the products back drop down.
Yeah.
Am I an admin of the service in general? Meaning, I'm not responsible for SharePoint and OneDrive, but I am responsible for overall what's
Hmm.
going on in 365. Then I need to be following those products themselves. So the 365 Admin Center. If I'm a security and compliance, then I can come in here and filter on security and compliance.
Makes
I can
sense.
filter on Yammer, et cetera. And then I can follow those items as they go through the phases. And so for those of you that don't know, tenants can be set up in three different ways for your whole tenant. One is you're on standard release, which is kind of you get it when everybody else is getting it.
Hmm.
You could be on targeted release, which means you get stuff earlier than most people. And then the third way to set up your tenant is targeted release for certain people or groups. And what that is kind of an in between, saying if we want people to be able to test things out in our environment before everyone else, then you can select that. I tell everybody that you really need to have two 365 tenants at least. And I think two is probably sufficient. I actually like organizations to have one that's their normal tenant on standard, and then another tenant that's on targeted, so that you can see things before they're there in live action, not in screenshots, not what
But
people
don't
are
you have to
saying
pay
in
for
blog
those? I
posts.
mean, when you have a second tenant, you got to pay for it separately, right?
You do, but you only really need one user, right?
Yeah.
So if if you're a big enough organization that you need to track changes, and you have and really I will say a lot of this has to do with how you're using the services. If you have customizations, if you're doing things that are not out of the box that you're having to put on top of, then you're probably going to need to spend more time tracking changes to see if if things are going to break.
Makes sense. Yeah.
If you're heavily dependent functionality within the services for your business. Meaning,
Yeah.
if that functionality goes away, that out of the box functionality goes away or changes, it will fundamentally change the way you do work. Then you're going to need to track that to make sure, that you are up to speed on that.
Even if you have E5, you just get, you're saying like one user, which I don't know, 25 or $30 per user per month.
But
and
but
that's
you really, it depends on what services you're using.
Yeah.
You could even have a tenant that is way less, that you're paying, way less. You don't even have to get the exact licensings, but you would only be paying, 30 or less dollars a month. You could even be paying a whole lot less to get the functionality that you need just to test things. If you're really testing SharePoint, for instance, your intranet, maybe that's the thing that you need to focus on, then you really don't need a license for Exchange in this demo tenant. But anyway, having those, ability to test things before they come. But this roadmap lets you just drill down into the products and really see what is being worked on. You'll see some that say launched. You'll see some that say in development. You'll see some that say rolling out. So launched means they've already launched it. It's being rolled out into tenants. And it's already finished that, and we've done it. Microsoft has done it. Rolling out means it's somewhere in that rollout period. It's been announced in the message center. It's being rolling out to targeted release or rolling out to standard release after that, somewhere in that process. And then in development means just that. They're working on it. They're developing the product, but they're trying the feature, but they're just giving you a heads up that it's coming down the pike. And so you can see how you can filter these out. I want to know what's in development for SharePoint, or I want to know what's in development for Yammer. If that's my role, I need to keep track of what's going on, right? So these are the things that it really depends on what your role is. If you're everything, you are sole responsible because your organization is either not big enough, or it doesn't has deemed you to be the person to keep up with all change, then that download button is going to be your friend, as well as the RSS button. I will say though, the roadmap does not have a really good way of filtering things when you're automating. What I mean by that is, if you're doing that RSS button that's at the top right of this view, if you scroll down just a little bit,
right here,
it gives you everything. There is no, it doesn't depend on what filter options you've selected. It's just going to give you the roadmap RSS. It's not that wonderful for kind of managing it. I will say there is a kind of a service that was put out by a Microsoft engineer that watches this. It's called the Roadmap Watch. Sorry to spring this on you about not having a URL for it, but it is.
We'll do it.
If you go to roadmapwatch.com, actually, I think is where the project website is. It tries to help you. Maybe put a www. That's the one I'm looking at right now. Has the W's for some reason.
Hopefully it's appropriate
site. It tries to give you a better manageability. So this is not a Microsoft supported functionality, but is a way to kind of consume the roadmap a little better than what is being done with just the roadmap and download RSS for example. So it gives you not just the update, but it's also tracking those changes that are happening to those updates on the roadmap, because items on the roadmap get updates as well. So they first release it, but sometimes we've changed what it's going to be, or we want to give more information, about it that's coming down the pike. Then they may update the roadmap item for it. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this. Thanks for letting me know.
Sure.
And I'm glad we didn't get to an inappropriate site when I typed it. I'm always worried when I do that live.
I wouldn't steer you wrong. I'll
tell you a story about that some other day, but I can't say it online right now.
Yeah.
It was something very embarrassing that happened back in my early days of 1997.
I think we've all had embarrassing times back in our, I don't know if it's just back in early.
Really embarrassing. Really out there.
Yeah. Anyway. So when you talk about change in 365, You have the roadmap. You actually have something before the roadmap, which
Mhm.
is where Microsoft gets inputs. It's called the user voice.
Mm.
However, there's maybe some changes coming down the pike. I'm hearing rumors, nothing official,
Mm.
rumors that maybe there's some changes coming with user voice. I don't know. I'm just hearing rumors this week. But um, there's the roadmap, and then there's the tech community blogs
Yeah.
and message center. And tech community blogs, message center don't necessarily go, one before the other. Sometimes there's a blog before there's a message
Yeah.
center post.
Oh yeah.
And then sometimes there's a message center post and then a blog. But um, really, if you're talking about keeping up with change, you got to be paying attention to the blogs. So there's blogs for most products in Microsoft 365 are here. Um, some are not. Power Platform comes to mind, but most others are. So you'll see all blogs right there. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. So just
Everything
keep
from
up with
secure.
all of them, right? Just
Well,
read.
so here's my tip. I actually subscribe to the RSS feeds for the blogs that I want to keep up with that matter to me. I
Yeah.
actually use Power Automate to do that. And when a blog post is posted, it emails me because that's
Mm.
what I have chosen to keep track. You could use Teams or something else, but I
Sure.
use email, and it sends me an email saying a blog post of this nature has been posted. So
Makes
do I
sense.
care? No. Delete. Do I care? Yes, I can click on it and read
Yeah.
it.
It is good to just get pushed some information, then you can just decide in your
Yeah.
inbox if I care or not. Otherwise, just going there, you forget. I don't know about you, but I forget. I got a million
Sure.
things going on all the
There's
time.
so much.
It's too
So
much.
there's so much content here, and especially we just finished Ignite recently,
Yeah.
this spring Ignite or the March version of Ignite, where they released, I don't know, a couple dozen blog posts all at once. How are you
Oh
supposed to
yeah.
read all of that, in one sitting? You're not.
Well,
It
that's the
really,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Are you supposed to read all that? I mean, yes. And before I forget, I know we're going to be short on time, so I'll go
yeah,
ahead and just show a few other
yeah.
links over that I had open. There's this good article by Matt Wade about how to stay up to date with Microsoft Office 365 lifecycle changes. There's the from Collab 365. There's how to keep up with changes in Office 365. There's this episode, which I hope I still have it open.
There it
Here we
is.
go. That Sarah Hassi did along with Mike Madrani and Antonio Meyer that talks about that. Everybody's talking about it, staying on top. But for all of us being MVPs, being so close to Microsoft, we have to do this, right? And
Mm.
even then, you keep up much better than I do, Daniel, for sure. And these folks are keeping up with really, really well as well. But others, is it really part of their job to do it? That's what most people are wondering, obviously. How much am I supposed to do? Or should I have someone else outsourced to do this or something? Because it's just too much.
Hmm.
Let me stop sharing over here and ask you this hard question that will there ever be an easier way that Microsoft will provide, or is this going to be life, forever?
My solution to this, if you have to, it's kind of the elevator pitch. If you ask me, how do you keep up with change in Microsoft 365? I'm going to answer with it's a process and not a tool. Um, do I think Microsoft will come up with a tool that helps you? No, I don't. I really don't think there's going to be this magic button, this tool, this website, this whatever it is that does it for us. I really
Yeah,
don't. I think we're going to be in this world for a while. So you're going to need to find your place. What role do you play in an organization? Do you make decisions based on information, whether you should use a tool, a service or not? If you don't make those decisions, then
hmm,
you need to focus on, do you, or if you do, then you need to be really focused on kind of the roadmap or higher type of information. Um, do you develop tools? Are you a developer? Then you most certainly need to be keeping up with what's going on
agree.
with what's rolling out. Kind of keep track of the roadmap. Yes, keep
Yeah,
an eye on it, but more focused on blogs, more focused on the message center, so you can be developing solutions on those. And you need access to a targeted tenant so you can be testing things.
agree.
So you can get actually a free 1-year developer license That's something Microsoft gives for free, where you could have a developer tenant. So go and search that on Bing and get that information.
That's a really good point.
If you're a security officer, then you need to be paying attention to the security information. Not everything. You can filter out a lot of stuff, but focus on security. But really, there isn't an easy button. It's process. So you're going to have to focus on the process, not a product.
Let me talk about one persona that I interact with a lot, and that's the person who has to ready or prepare their users for a change, or let them know after the change has already happened. Like, oh, okay, well, here's what came down the pipeline. Please don't touch this. How do those folks help their users? How are they supporting and training their users so they are doing the right things the right way, and also not worrying about the things that they should not be worrying about?
Yeah, they're going to have to keep an eye on the roadmap. They're going to, and you could do automated stuff like the roadmap watch, the website we were looking at before. Make sure you're getting the Message Center weekly email is what I would suggest for you to do. So you have a roll up, spend 30 minutes a week reviewing that, scanning it. Is it something that items on here that we need to be paying attention to? And for that kind of that change enabler or coordinator, I would also say that, self-promotion here, but our Message Center show actually focuses on that role. We talk about IT admins, but we actually focus a lot on change agents within organizations. So watching the show, we actually know there are organizations, they've told us, that sit down every week, watch our show, whether live or recorded, and they go through the same messages and talk about, okay, this is what they said. Let's talk about this. Is this something we need? So they have a meeting every week and they go through that. It depends on your size of your organization, how you're using it, to how much of this that you're going to need. And I think for those change agents as well, that planner seeking that we looked at and we talked
That's
about,
going to be pretty helpful. Oh yeah,
very helpful. So they can bring in people as they need it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I can't believe it, but the time is up as to what we agreed to talk about. So there's always going to be something. If there is, I'm sure Daniel will also let you know if new ways come out. So definitely keep an eye on the show. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Very much appreciated always. And let us know if there's any questions. I'm sure Daniel and I would love to help. We love the community, and that's the reason we got designated MVPs, quite some time ago. And let us know if there are other ways that you're doing that we're not thinking about. We would love to learn from the audience as well.
Most certainly.
Yeah, Daniel, thanks so much. This was great. Appreciate you being with me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, everybody.